Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Hey, it's Thursday, kids.
Oh, man, what a day.
What a week.
What a day, what a week.
Wow. What a year.
Well, this job this job has its bonuses.
Yeah, I saw about 24 hours ago, I was telling you in the hall yesterday, Vice President Vance posted at some point during the day on, it must have been Tuesday or Tuesday evening, I wonder if other presidents had as much excitement as I'm having, basically, and you know, with everything going on. But it has been a crazy week. So far, the ceasefire holding. You know, once they got a grip on it, seems to be holding. Everybody's losing their mind over NATO, and you know, it's what's interesting is the administration is at the position that they're not an immediate threat. And if you look at what the liberal activist media is putting out there for Iran, in other words, it was barely damaged, you know, or whatever. It's only 2 months. Essentially, what they're saying is the liberal activist media is, yeah, though they do pose a threat. And I'm like, I'm okay with the liberal activist media thinking Iran still poses a threat, because I don't believe the threat completely has been eliminated. I don't know anybody in the administration who's saying that. But when you look at the CIA statement, the Director Ratcliffe coming out and making the statement, the report coming out from Israel, look, I can't tell you, because you and I have gotten into this level of, and I think we're skeptics. First of all, that's what we do. We're supposed to be skeptics. I don't trust anything 100%. But I think there will be tells along the way very soon as to whether or not Iran is within either a couple of months. I don't believe that. Or if it's further down the road. Director Ratcliffe, what was it? Severely damaged, what the CIA said.
Well, I'll tell you, my conclusion out of all of this, the president still has a huge problem in our intelligence agencies.
No,
our intelligence
doubt.
agencies, under Brennan,
yeah.
What he did in that time, in the CIA, the president has enemies in the intelligence agencies. They need to find out who's leaking this. If it's correct, remember they said 3 different sources,
right?
But they said 3 different sources put their own spin on it, and 3 different sources. Early on, the assessments mean nothing.
Right.
And when you look at it now, I will tell the administration, it's fine to say, look, Israel agrees with us. We agree with us, independent, because if you look at some of the private analysts doing it, they're going, no, there's a lot of damage here. That right. Isn't true. In fact, and I've been looking everywhere throughout the media to see anything that backs up what the leak says. And so far, I can't find it. Now, my only thing for the administration, it's fine to say, look, Israel agrees with us. Don't say Iran agrees with us.
Yeah, when Iran came out and made that statement, I thought, well, this isn't good. Don't latch on to that. And, of course, that's...
Yeah, the administration, don't latch on to what the enemy says. Just make sure you don't do that.
I think we can all agree that we shouldn't trust Iran regardless of what they're saying. Because the moment they say, oh, no, it was severely damaged, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we need to be on high alert. Oh, no, we don't have any. Because they've been, by the way, this is the back and forth, I guess domestically, but it really is globally, because the president was traveling for NATO. It gets back to what you just mentioned, the leak and intelligence, the leaks and intelligence. Marco Rubio making the case from NATO saying, look, these are people that are all they're doing is they're looking at something and making an analysis And that's not how you analyze if you're in the intel community. By the way, those individuals in those positions know that. There is a process for analysis. And so beyond that, it's where are those leaks coming from? You mentioned Brennan, but what Brennan did, to add to that, Brennan and others created this culture where you have to be an activist no matter what position you're in. Whether on the bench, we already know that. If you're a judge, if you're a senator in California, Padilla, if you're AOC, a representative in the House, you have to be an activist at every turn. And in the intel community, what does that mean? Well, it's supposed to be a very tight ship, a very tight protocol. Because if you truly respect the system for what it is and you're working in intel, then you know the damage you could create long-term by leaking one thing. Yet you do it
jail
for
time.
Whatever cause.
Whoever leaked that, if there's 3 sources, they should be charged, convicted, and do jail time.
Yep.
You cannot do that. But the fact now, you and I both said, well, I understand the administration hitting back on it, but as you and I said, well, this isn't the damage is, and we're going to find out eventually. The damage is what the damage is,
right?
And the president's already made it clear if the first strike didn't work, and there's they start rebuilding, we attack again. It's like, well, okay, fine,
right. Well, Iran, that's the question, right? Does Iran believe that if we found out the damage was minimal and that they still pose a threat, that we wouldn't go back in? What does the enemy believe? What is the enemy and what is the power of the enemy right now? What do they have the ability to do? All that's going to play out in time. I can tell you, I don't know. But I'm with you in that I haven't seen anything that backs up the leaks.
Well, I mean, with CNN, that first did the one reporter that everybody is pounding on her.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that when they bring on the experts, even on CNN, and we'll have some of the audio coming up here, the experts are saying, well, no, that's not the case. This is what's going on here. Jake Tapper talking about the fact that we have to hold presidents accountable. Oh, my God, that was like, shut up.
Yeah.
You of anybody can't say that. And if he gets burned on this, which it looks like he is, and you know how you know we've done this long enough, there are conservative outlets that the president has criticized before because they always don't agree with him. And if they believe the president is wrong, even though they are conservative publications, they will say the president is wrong, that's inaccurate, that isn't the truth. Not one of them, not one of those, and that's how I look at it. Forget about it. I don't pay attention to the left, but I pay attention to those conservative outlets that have disagreed with the president and ended up being right.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that say, no, there's, from what we can see, there is significant damage,
right,
to everything. I think from right now where because you look at where the momentum is going, and you look at the response from the White House. The White House, as the president said yesterday, Hegseth's going to hold a press conference on this, and they're going to go through point by point what the damage is.
Right. It's going to happen in less than 7 hours here.
So I have a feel when the administration is so aggressive and saying we're going to go point by point by point, that they know that they believe they've got this argument won.
Yep.
And they're going to pound it right. Daddy is going to pound it right down their throats.
I love that. Well, this is, again, if you step back from it, you think to yourself, well, what is the motivation? What's the motivation for the left activist media? Well, it's very clear what I said yesterday. You take the victory away from Donald Trump. I think when in the first hours of the ceasefire, when it wasn't a ceasefire and it appeared to be it wasn't going to be a ceasefire, I think they were waiting to pounce then. And it was, see what he's done? He only made it worse. And when all of that got in line and he got Israel on the phone and then they got back to the real ceasefire, then it was about, well, 3 sources tell us they didn't do that much damage. Again, jumping on that is, again, on the surface, if you want to go ahead and believe them, the liberal activist media, all right, Iran is still a threat. Game on. We're not going home. Keep your uniform on. Keep your helmet on. Stay on the ball field. And other analogies. You're going to have to stay in this game. We're going to have to stay in the zone. What they're trying to do, the motivation for them to do this, is to rob him of victory. And you see the instant polls. Those are going to change, by the way, but at the instant polls, man, he's doing okay. As a president, he's doing okay. And that's where I think the American people are. The liberal activist media was trying to get everybody riled up about, oh, it didn't do anything, it didn't do anything, it didn't do anything. Sorry. I refuse to believe we dropped that many mops and it didn't do anything. Because at the very least, just my basic mind, I have no intel whatsoever. At the very least, all of that cement, those bunkers, those facilities, especially at Fordo, were under, are crushed, and I don't know if they're accessible by any stretch.
Well, I look at this from the military perspective, not the political perspective. I understand everything is politics. We've said this before. People who say, stop bringing, of course it's politics, because politicians are making, decisions. But I look at this, if you look at this strictly military, if you didn't do the damage that you want, like in any war, you've learned something. Mm-hmm. You don't win a war in one day. Mm-hmm. You don't win a war in one battle. Mm-hmm. Maybe you do if you're Trump. But you look at the history of war, wars go on for a while. Mm-hmm. You don't the first day say, well, we didn't inflict the damage to end the war today.
Right.
What you do is you go to battle, you learn what you do wrong. There's why there's the whole concept of military strategy. You learn what you've done wrong, and you come back again and you do it right. So if it was, and I don't believe it was, but hypothetically, if it was a failure and we didn't get the damage that we want, we've learned something. And with the president who said, nope, they're not going to be able to go back to it, then the pressure would be from himself on himself to decide whether to go back and inflict the damage that makes him comfortable and makes our military comfortable that we have completely disabled their potential to produce nuclear weapons. It's a military thing, and there's this instant thing that if from the media they were trying to minute one say it failed, and so they jump on anything that happens. The reporter from CNN, by the way, got it wrong on a number of things. The Hunter Biden laptop, they've gone through it. I mean, you've got the conservative media going through, she got this wrong, she got this wrong, she got this wrong. She said this was wrong, that was wrong, this was wrong, that was wrong. And even you have, for example, it was Mark Halperin's podcast. They had the New York Post reporter that actually, it was not Miranda Devine, but the reporter that actually first broke the story of the Hunter Biden laptop story say, this reporter is an absolute liar. And so We're going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, all the indicators that I see from people that may have a mission goal as to where the United States should be, but it's not a political goal. They want to know, did we actually destroy it? So far, the majority of all of those people are saying we don't buy the CNN report. Well, and we don't buy how they analyzed that first report.
And I also refuse to believe that if Donald Trump is president on this mission, think about the size of this mission, believed for a moment the job wasn't done, he's not going to sit back and ignore it. He's already in. You got to finish the job, and I fully believe if he believed for a minute it wasn't done, that he would complete it. If they learn at some point that is the case, that he will, as long as he's president.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. Retreads have a reputation for causing that rubber debris or gators found on the sides of the highway. However, studies show that 68% of the tire debris collected on the highway comes from new tires, not retreads. The reality is that retreads will wear at the same rate as new tires if you don't properly maintain them. Retreads are still a major investment and require engaged maintenance practices.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, there was a little bit of discussion yesterday about the New York City primary, was there not?
Just a little,
just a tad.
Gosh, it was crazy.
Even Serpent got involved in it.
Well, again,
that's James Carville.
Somebody said it. Somebody posted it too. Was it somebody at National Review? I'll have to go back and look. I'm sure I bookmarked it. Basically what we said. Hey, if New York City wants to do this little socialist experiment, good luck.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Go do it.
Go for it. It might, I think the case too, they kind of went a little further. I'll find the post. But it was something to the effect of, it may be exactly what the city of New York finally needs, right? To fully get to the point of going, okay, we got to regroup. And then the demos coming out of the people who earned $50,000 or less not voting for Mamdani, and then and how he got basically that upper, I think it was $75,000 or more earnings. I don't know what that gets you in New York City, by the way. That may be with the cost of living, you still may be in poverty at that point. But that's what every other post seemed like it was about that. There was a lot of stuff coming out of NATO, but so much was on Mamdani and
dominated. It dominated social media completely.
Well, it was like a lot of people. It also seemed like a lot of people, not the people that were posting necessarily, but some people who were responding to those posts were just finding out who he is. And it's hard to tell who lives in New York City, who doesn't, unless they actually come out and say, well, I live here or whatever. But it seemed like a lot of people were finding out. I wonder how many New Yorkers were finding out who he actually is.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red iRadio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. All right, the daddy moment. At NATO yesterday. Here we go.
Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No.
But do you
He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
And Rubio in the background, he's just losing it.
Well, it's the thing is that she meant that as a serious question, right?
Yes.
She wanted him to say, they're a bunch of children, a bunch of losers. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what the F they're doing. She was expecting, she was wanting that. That's the goal of that question. And, of course, the president just takes it another direction, disarming it. It was a moment, if you think about what the UN director was saying, it was about, I said UN again, NATO. Sometimes they blend.
Must be dementia.
Yeah.
Must be dementia.
Or it must be the fact that sometimes NATO and the UN are very much alike.
Well, no, I'm just going back to Dick Durbin last week saying, well,
qualified analyst Dick Durbin.
The problem was not that Biden had cognitive problems. The problem is that there's this one time that Trump said UN instead of UK or UK instead of UN.
Yeah.
Which
or
again,
it was I think with that it was UK and Britain. It was EU and Britain.
EU and
because he said it was because Britain. He was talking to the Prime Minister of Britain or talking about him, and then the EU. He said we're making a deal with the EU.
EU and UK.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And that was his evidence that Trump had dementia. So every time Eric has said UN instead of NATO, I've hit him hard.
Yeah.
Because affectionately, I've hit him hard.
Yeah.
To quote the president.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the F I'm doing, but here's the thing.
Well, you're gonna have to put a coin in the swear jar. By the way, that was fun posting that today.
Yeah, mine's overflowing. I reposted that and said I have enough retirement in mine. My swear jar. Where'd all these quarters come
be
from,
honest,
Grandpa?
If we did now. We can't do what a lot of people do on the podcast because of FCC laws when it comes to obscenity. And so we
do it in the hallway.
Well, we really, but I don't think that even if I did just a podcast, maybe a damn or a hell once in a while as I do now, but that's very rare. But I just don't think.
Sometimes it seems like they're doing it just to do it. It seems gratuitous in nature when they do it on their podcast and they used to be on broadcasts.
Yeah, I don't. I just don't think that I would do that. But I want to get to this before we get to anything else because this has been the one thing that if you've been a long time listener to the show that we've talked about on a consistent basis, and even when you had Republicans go after Obama or Clinton when they would attack someone, and even when Republicans would say this, and if you're a long time listener to the show. Well, not Clinton because I wasn't. We weren't doing this show when Clinton was in office. But we've always stated that no, the president has the constitutional authority to do so, and we've also talked about because even you had Massey or whatever. I'm trying to think of the other Republican out there that was saying the War Powers Act, the War Powers Act. It is amazing, and there was an article in National Review. Trump's strike on Iran was constitutional. John Yoo doing the column, and it's about time that somebody. We do it all the time. We break it down point by point by point by point. He even broke it down further.
Yeah,
but as we said, well, the War Powers Act in '73, Congress can dictate to the president what he can do. No, they can't. They can control the power of the purse. If they don't like what the president is doing, they can cut funding.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it would have to, when they cut funding, it would be a legislative bill that he could veto. So they'd have to get a vast majority of Congress to disagree with them. But Congress does not control the authority given to the president under the Constitution of the United States when it comes to being commander-in-chief.
He's the daddy.
And he's the daddy. He is the daddy. They go through it and talks about he calls Thomas Massey and was Representative Warren Davidson. The pacifist left found itself in the company of the isolationist right. This is not constitutional, Representative Tom Massey said on X shortly after Trump announced the strike. Similar remarks came from Representative Warren Davidson. While Trump's decision may prove just, it's hard to conceive a rationale that's constitutional, he said on X before Trump's speech. Marjorie Taylor Greene posted, "It is not our fight. They may be joined by a few non-isolationists who believe that the president should have sought congressional permission, though the question remains why they think so regarding an Iranian strike, but not regarding other presidential uses of force, such as drone attack on terrorists or rogue states such as Syria or Libya. Regardless of their political priors, the critics fundamentally misunderstand the Constitution." It's really amazing that I understand the left doing it, because the left's just going to, they're just saying it's unconstitutional because they hate Trump.
Yeah.
When the right starts doing it and trying to make what they say is a constitutional point, and they're clueless and they're members of Congress, that's when I think you have to start worrying. But as he points out, John, you in National Review, as Alexander Hamilton explained in the Federalist Papers, the founders vested these powers. It gives him the president has primary constitutional duty for protection of community against foreign attacks. The founders vested these powers in the president precisely because, and when you hear this, you're going to say, well, that's what you guys say all the time. Precisely because only a single man could act with sufficient energy in the executive, that's a quote, to respond to the challenges of foreign policy and national security. Decision, activity, secrecy, dispatch will generally characterize the proceedings of one man, Hamilton wrote, while large bodies such as Congress could become divided, which would impede or frustrate the most important measures of the government in the most critical emergencies of the state. Also, he explained, of all the cares or concerns of government, the direction of war most particularly demands those qualities which distinguish the exercise of power by a single hand, Hamilton said. He believed that the power of directing and employing the common strength of society in war forms an unusual and essential part in the definition of executive authority under, we didn't have a constitution at that point, of what the Constitution now protects for the president. Hamilton's defense of the executive power has held sway for more than 2 centuries, and they get to Vietnam and the War Powers Act, as we have. In the wake of the Vietnam War, political leaders adopted a radical academic theory that only Congress could authorize war. In 1973, Congress enacted the War Powers Resolution over the veto of a weakened Nixon. It requires presidents to receive congressional approval for any use of military force abroad, and if they do not get it, to pull the troops out after 60 days. Leading Democratic politicians such as Kennedy, this is Ted Kennedy, and Joe Biden claimed the Constitution War Powers Clause forbade Republican presidents from waging war without congressional permission. Then, of course, Democrats furiously attacked George W. Bush for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, even though they had voted to authorize them on the ground that he somehow violated the Constitution. This led presidential candidate Obama in 2008 to declare the president does not have the power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual or imminent threat to the nation. Candidate Hillary Clinton affirmed that the Constitution requires Congress to authorize war. I do not believe that the president can take military action, including any kind of strategic bombing against Iran without congressional authorization. But presidents have refused to accept the legality of the War Powers Resolution of 1973, as we have explained over and over and over again. They may, as Obama did, criticize Bush, or they may attack the Republicans for it. They don't even buy into it. They know, and they explain it right here, as we have said. Trump's critics err in the beliefs that Congress can seize the president's war powers through a simple statute, and that Congress's power to declare war mandates that it must pre-approve all wars. If this reading were correct, we should expect the Constitution to consistently repeat that phrase when addressing war making, and they do not.
Right.
And that's what we have stated over and over again. Democrats use it just because anything on the opposition is unconstitutional, whether it is or not.
Well, they use it at one turn, but even Obama didn't pay attention. He ignored the War Powers Act.
He ignored it completely. He did whatever he wanted to do. Right. So they're throwing you a line of BS when it suits them.
Right.
But as we have said, and even when I've heard so-called conservative pundits over the last week saying, well, I won't call Jonathan Turley. Jonathan Turley says, well, he should have gone. Why? Why should he have gone to Congress?
Right. For what?
For what? Legally, he doesn't have to. And the defense, you hear the defense, well, everybody else does it, implying that everybody else was unconstitutional and nobody went after them, and Trump is unconstitutional, so nobody should go after him either. That's not the argument.
No.
That's not the Constitution. The Constitution is that the War Powers Act holds no clout, no legal clout at all, because the only way you can change the president's war power authority is through a constitutional amendment. That isn't that hard to understand, and I'm just amazed that so many people, including Republican legislators, pundits or whatever, have no clue as to how the Constitution works.
Well, because if you want to say, I'm against taking action and bombing Iran, that's one thing. But that's very different from saying falsely that the president doesn't have the power. And that we hold the power if you're a member of Congress. You don't hold that power. You hold the funding power long term.
Yep. You hold the funding power if you can get it by a veto.
Exactly. If you've got a veto proof, then there's your power. But it is not the authority. It's the funding authority.
Every single administration has said, well, we may follow it, and they may accuse the other side of being.
They nod in the political realm, and which is exactly what Obama was doing. There's wag your finger at George W. Bush and then do the same thing while you're president. That's exactly what Obama did.
But Bush actually had approval from Congress.
Right. Right.
That point where Obama, Obama and many of his bombings did not. And so you don't need it. Now, you may think, well, we should. Well, there's a lot of things that you may think we should. I don't. I believe that, that the president should have the ability to do that. I agree without question with Hamilton in this case. When they formed the Constitution and the Federalist Papers were the basis of the Constitution of the United States. I agree with that, and I agree that the president has the ability to do it. Have they used it wrong? Probably you could go back in history and say we shouldn't have done that, we shouldn't have done that. But the president still has the authority. Look, Congress has the authority to make laws, and they suck most of the time. Well, so it doesn't mean just because it's not right, but I view what Trump did as right. I want to make this clear.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I'm just talking about hypothetically when you look at it. But the Constitution absolutely gives the president the right to do what Trump did. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I do have a short audio cut that I just found that isn't related to anything we've been talking about, but it's Senator Kennedy.
Okay. we got to play it.
Here we go.
Do we give money to Fox?
No.
Do we give money to Politico?
No.
Then why are we giving money to public broadcasting? Why? We're $36 trillion in the hole.
Everything he says is just great.
If you're just listening to that, again, I'm watching his face and his hands.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just love him.
Well,
I just
because
love
it
the way he
reminds
does
me a
things.
lot of my dad in that way. Yeah. When my dad is talking about things just like that, my dad would have said that with the same expressions, by the way.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, we are out next week. We are taking vacation next week. Marconi Award winner, Dan Mandis. You know him from WTN, our great affiliate there in Nashville. He will be in throughout the week, keeping you company, taking your calls, and everything else. So, Dan, thank you once again. But we are honored to have Dan sitting in the chair while we are out.
Yeah, he's the Marconi Award winner, and I knew Marconi.
Yeah, you hired Marconi into radio. People don't know
this. Yes, yeah. In fact, I remember Marconi and I we talked to Eddie. That's what we used to call Tom Edison.
Yeah,
and,
right. Yeah.
And we used to mock him a little bit because he would sit there and send over, "Hey, try this incandescent bulb."
Right.
And of course, Marconi, with his electrical experience and everything else, we were amazed by it. But the first 800 times that Eddie sent it over to us, it didn't work.
It didn't work. It's like, what is he doing? Why doesn't he call us? Oh, wait.
How old would that make me? Would I be like 150 years old now? 170 years old?
Yeah. Pretty much.
We've got a ton of audio cuts to play coming up here from Pete Hegseth, from Trump, from the former UN weapons inspector David Albright.
Mm-hmm.
There was a slam dunk in saying, no, their program's severely damaged.
Yeah.
But before we get there, it's just, I don't know if the mainstream media covered it as much, but you and I both came in and just said, my God, the response to Zoran Mandani winning the Democratic primary has got everybody panicking. From Democrats, not the super far left, from Democrats and Republicans going, not really, Republicans aren't panicking. Republicans are going, fine, go ahead. Was it Red State? You said you found the one that said, let them do it. Let them
that's
destroy
where I saw
themselves.
it yesterday. I thought somebody had posted it. It was Red State that wrote, New York City just voted to destroy itself, and it's time to let it happen. Yeah. Redstate.com. But it's, honestly, it's what we said. Okay, you want to do this experiment, go ahead. Go ahead. Now, it can go a couple of different ways. It doesn't go very well, and he doesn't last long as a mayor, and he's out. Or it doesn't go well, and he's out, and they vote a communist in, which he pretty much already is. They vote another communist in, and they keep going in that same direction. But it's their choice, and that's the point they're making in this Red State article. And I'm, again, It's written by Bonci. I don't know who Bonci is, and my apologies for that. But that's who wrote the article there at Red State, redstate.com. New York City just voted to destroy itself. It's time to let it happen. And I'm absolutely in agreement. If you want to go down this road, if this is the choice, then great. Remember when we said we were doing the back and forth on the soda cup size ban, and it was what 42% of New Yorkers, in New York City were saying, "Yeah, we need this. We need this."
You and I were taking phone calls from New York City. And people were saying, we think it's a good idea. I remember
we can't help ourselves.
Remember the one guy who called, he said, I wish they would ban cigarettes, too, because I can't stop.
Right.
Well, Trump was called daddy, but it looks like New York City is looking for a daddy.
Exactly. A nanny. Nanny state.
A nanny daddy.
Yeah.
A sugar daddy.
Right.
A nanny sugar daddy.
Exactly. I reposted that article on my X page at Eric Harley if you want to go and read it. It's worth the read. But they essentially at Red State, they make the same case that we made. And hey, if you want to do your little experiment on the city or state level, then go for it. But he makes the point here in this article. But no federal bailouts, none of that. They can do their experiment, but we're not going to be there to bail you out. Well, that's until another liberal administration comes in. But this is exactly the way it was going to happen. If you don't, and if people are just learning who he is, or if it is the case that they vote for him and then learn who he is, that's on them.
Trump.
I mean, if he wins and becomes
Trump yesterday, and really, there's not any over-the-top hyperbole here.
Right.
It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zoran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Democratic primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC and all the dummies backing him. Mm-hmm. Even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country.
Yeah. The left is really trying to make him, Mamdani, the rock star, the new rock star. He's 33. He's young. He's hip. He's an activist. It's what we need. We need this energy. Go for it.
I already saw, because the allegations that he's an anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is religious bigotry towards him because he's Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, no, it's got nothing to do with, you can be, as we know, you can be anti-Semitic without being Muslim.
Right. Yep.
As we know, but they're going to throw everything out there.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to matter in this particular case. If he wins, and you were telling me about some of the demographics out there that people under $50,000 didn't vote for him.
Right. And then once you get 50,000 and above, it starts to grow. But the working class, here it is. And forgive me, I got to find this source. Somebody posted this yesterday. But if this is accurate, under 50,000, Cuomo plus 19, 50 to 100,000, Mamdani plus 6, over 100,000. This is dollars per year. Mamdani plus 13. So it's not the working class.
I would like to see over $5 million. 0%.
Yeah. Or it would be, if you're actually, the higher the income, the greater he did. If you get, if it depends exactly where you get to a point, you get to that point.
That's why I said
crossing.
That's why I said 5 million or 10 million.
Yeah, you cross that line exactly. Yeah, I know where you're going now. Yeah, okay. You get into the the millionaires and billionaires, and of course that's exactly what a communist is going to do. But keep in mind, look, New York City has its own income tax as a city. There are things that if he becomes mayor, he can push for. My question is, how much more radical is he than the party is right now? Isn't he a direct representation of the radical
Yes,
left?
yes.
So
Yes,
I'm
he is.
thinking,
Yeah.
for me, and I don't live in New York City, but for me, I'm looking at this going, well, of course it was going to go this direction.
Well, look, AOC is, believe it or not, moderated a little bit because remember, she was out of the gate with the Green New Deal,
Yeah.
which was basically the setup to communism. Let's make it so capitalism doesn't work,
Right.
and therefore the government is forced to nationalize all major companies. She's mellowed a little bit from that, but she still believes probably that position. She doesn't promote that position as much.
Right.
All right. Got to go to the Babylon Bee here.
Okay. All right.
You ready?
All right. What do you got?
Mamdani vows to knock down the World Trade Center to build more affordable housing.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Hamas claims responsibility for the New York City mayoral primary.
Oh, my gosh.
And this is still off this topic, but on the topic from the first hour and where we're also going to continue to go throughout the show. CNN, Hiroshima barely set back by atomic bomb.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. If the liberal activist media were covering it then, right?
Yes. Oh, this is bad. Defeated Cuomo left groping for answers.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Trump's Christian faith questioned as he didn't say fudge.
Except I didn't say fudge.
Oh,
my gosh. Yeah.
Uh,
Wow, that's crazy. That is, and so much to work with this week, especially at the Babylon Bee. By the way, it looks like those numbers, they didn't quote it. Whoever posted those numbers I was talking about in the demos, it looks like they came from the New York Times. I thought the font and illustrations looked like the New York Times, which would make sense. And it appears to be in line with what they break down there in terms of the demographics of income, who voted for who, Cuomo versus Mamdani. It's again, I don't, honestly, I'm not surprised. I don't think you were surprised at all by it.
no.
I heard some that, well, Cuomo was a horrible candidate. And then, it's what I said yesterday. Well, I think without Cuomo, he might have done, a lot better. With another candidate, he might have done a lot better. Who knows? I don't know. And we'll never know in this situation. But they are on their way in New York City to voting a radical in as mayor, and that doesn't surprise me.
From National Review, just the first sentence, I'm laughing like crazy. Cuomo has positioned himself slightly to the right of Mamdani.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 33-year-old Mamdani is pro-Palestinian, that means pro-Hamas, pro-defund the police, supports rent freezes, and favors expanding city services and raising taxes. The prospect of a Mamdani mayoralship is so grim that even the New York Times editorial page urged its liberal readers not to give him any of their votes on their ranked choice ballots.
Wow.
Mamdani, the New York Times, says offers an agenda that remains alluring among elite progressives, but has proved damaging to city life. It added, his agenda reads like a turbocharged version of Mr. de Blasio's dismaying mayorship.
Wow, I think that's a great point.
The Times could not bring itself to actually endorse Cuomo, but admitted he would be a better choice than Mamdani.
Well, that's as close to an endorsement by the New York Times as you're going to get, right, for Cuomo.
Yeah. The reaction, though, even from Democrats going, God. Well, as we said last night, there has been an effort you've seen it in the media to say that Democrats, the voter really doesn't buy into what the Democratic Party is selling. You've seen the articles. Well, we've got to change. We've got to change. We've got to change. We've got to change. And we've said, change what? Are you going to change on the issues? Which issues are you going to change on?
Right.
The only thing that we have seen that I have seen the reports that says Democrat voters want the focus. They don't disagree with identity politics, the racism of the Democratic Party. They don't disagree with the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. They just want less focus on that and more focus on economics. But their economic philosophy and narrative is give everything to everybody.
Yeah, right.
And we're like, well, then you're really not changing. What you're saying is the focus should go from what you know is an 80-20 issue that's against you to something that may be a 60-40 issue against you, because most Americans, when you look at Mamdani promoting everything, he doesn't win under 50,000. Why not?
Right.
Nobody buys it.
Right. Some other interesting breakdowns here. We talked about the income, but the New York Times breaks it down in precincts with more Hispanic residents than Mamdani does better than Cuomo, 48-41. In precincts with more black residents, which includes 15% of the precincts, Cuomo, 51%, Mamdani, 34%. More college graduates, those precincts, which is 27% of those precincts there in New York, 45% Mamdani and 28% Cuomo. And white residents, which is 29% of precincts, 39% for Mamdani and 34% for Cuomo. An interesting breakdown. But I do wonder how many people are just learning that may have voted for him this round are just learning about who he is. Or just got caught up in the, hey, no, I saw his name, saw the guy, saw his videos, saw his, whatever, social media, and they don't fully understand.
It goes back a couple of years ago, but I mentioned it yesterday in Buffalo. And, I'm from there, and I'm back so much where I used to be a talk show host there, so I pay attention to, what's going on. It goes back a couple of years ago where in the Democratic primary, the socialist won. Yeah. The incumbent mayor lost.
Right.
And so he ran as an independent, and the campaign, business went crazy because this woman, I can't remember her name, this woman was as big of a nut job as Mamdani is. And she got beat in the general election by the incumbent mayor, who's liberal but not insane.
Right.
But I got to say liberal but not insane because so many liberals are insane.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators can save a hefty amount of money by participating in discount fuel networks. If you're leased and your fleet has a fuel optimizer program, use it. Such a program helps plan a trip based on fuel prices and locations in the carrier's fuel network. The larger the carrier, typically the larger the discounts that are possible. Fees for using such networks have become rare thanks to competition for drivers. Owner-operators are well advised, however, to pass up network fuel stops that are too costly, are too far off route, sell inferior fuel, or are dangerously or poorly maintained. For independent owner-operators, a bevy of fuel discount networks exists, from a variety of traditional fuel cards to the National Association of Small Trucking Companies network and the younger mudflap applications discounts at independent truck stops around the nation. Research the options and discounts available to find the right one for you. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I know you're going, what the heck was that, Gary? Hi, how's everybody doing?
How's it going?
I'm reading more from National Review. In truth, New York City's political culture has been dying for some time. After 20 years of leadership under Giuliani and Bloomberg, the city has been adrift under Bill de Blasio and Adams. Although the city is hardly where it was in the 1970s, polls consistently show New Yorkers are unhappy with the way things are. There are no more political machines. The two political parties as institutions are basically dead, and there is no even a...
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning and welcome. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. That's right.
And thank you.
It's so easy. So, I mentioned the Babylon Bee. I forgot to read the best one. Here's how 12 media outlets covered the story of Trump bombing Iran. Remember, this is Babylon Bee, so these headlines are all parody headlines.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Here's how different media outlets are covering the historic news. The New York Times, quiet Middle Eastern community devastated by unprovoked Trump attack. Fox News, Trump neutralizes terrifying Iran nuclear threat with mere seconds to spare. The New York Post, I told you so. Iran out of luck as Trump drops bodacious bunker buster. From the New York Post. CNN, Trump cruelly deprives poor Iranian children of the nuclear weapon they've always dreamed of. MSNBC, Iran is now the George Floyd of the Middle East.
Wow.
BBC, reminder, next call to prayer is in 1 hour.
Oh, wow.
One America News, yay, Trump for avoiding war. Oh, wait, he bombed Iran? Really? I mean, yay, Trump for bombing Iran. Al Jazeera, Trump just bombed our headquarters.
Wow. Wow.
Vogue magazine, 5 kinky tricks you can try in the bedroom to show your support for Iran. And my favorite one of how media outlets covered Trump bombing Iran from the Babylon Bee was Vice. I took fentanyl and slept with a penguin. That's where I lost it on that one.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, so dang funny. Oh, my head hurts from laughing so much. I'm just...
What about, like, Men's Health?
Wow.
How Trump stays healthy while attacking other nations. Here's what's in his fridge. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
All right. Here is, I want to play this audio here from yesterday at the NATO meetings. And this is Pete Hegseth. This is the press conference talking about the media coverage of this.
Opponent to your Zelensky meeting for a tactical reason with President Putin?
Let him answer this.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah. There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times, is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons, to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that dropped the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
But you're not disputing the report said what it said, even though it was initial.
The report said what it said, and it was fine. It was severe, they think, but they had no idea. They shouldn't have issued a report until they did. But we've gotten the information. I think Pete said it better than you can say it. And, you know, you should be proud, you, especially you, should be proud of those pilots, and you shouldn't be trying to demean them.
No,
those pilots flew at great risk, a big chance that they'd never come back home and see their husbands or their wives. Let me just tell you, you and NBC, fake news, which is one of the worst, and CNN, New York Times, are all bad. They're sick. There's something wrong with them. But you know what? You should be praising those people instead of trying to find some. By getting me, by trying to go and get me, you're hurting those people. They were devastated. You know, I got a call from Missouri, great state, that I won 3 times by a lot. And I got a call that the pilots and the people on the plane were devastated because they were trying to minimize the attack. And they all said it was hit. But we don't think it was really maybe hit that badly. And they were devastated. They put their lives on the line, and then they have, and I'm not referring to you, but real scum come out and write reports that are as negative as they could possibly be. It should be the opposite. You should make them heroes and heroines. You should make them really people that they were so devastated when they heard this news. And you know what they said? One of them, I spoke to one of them, said, "Sir, we hit the site. It was perfect. It was dead on." Because they don't understand fake news, because they have a normal life, except they have to fly very big, very fast planes. But it's a shame. You should be making them heroes.
There is the president. Now, this is, let me get here. My windows are opening automatically. I want to play this. This is from former UN Weapons Inspector David Albright on CNN. Okay, here we go. Okay.
You could see that the key nodes of a centrifuge program were hit. There were 3 sites that make the centrifuges, and those had actually been declared to the International Atomic Energy Agency, and so there's a confidence there weren't others, and so all 3 were destroyed. There's a critical facility to make the feed gas. It's kind of like the gasoline that would go into a centrifuge or a car. The centrifuge would take this uranium hexafluoride and then spin it and turn it into enriched uranium. And that site was heavily damaged by the United States. And so what you have is Iran can't make centrifuges, and it can't produce, in a sense, the equivalent of the gas that would go into a car. So the program is severely damaged.
Former UN Weapons Inspector David Albright yesterday. So, yeah, I mean, it's the enthusiasm that they jump on it as if that the leaker is giving them everything when, of course, they're not. The leaker, as we've said before, leakers have an agenda.
Right. Who does it serve in this case to leak that information? It serves anyone who is against the president. If you're part of the intel community and you leak something, you're not serving your country. You're not. Because if you're an analyst and you found that there's information that is counter to what the president is promoting, you would find a way. You would say basically, well, we need to make an effort to get this to the commander-in-chief so he has this information based on what we found. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe his information that he had is wrong. You serve the nation. You serve the president, but not if you're an activist. If you're an activist, you serve yourself and your own cause, which is anything to bring him down. And in this case, to take a victory away from him. If it is the case that Iran still has some capability left, then the assessment will be made. Keep in mind, we're barely 5 months into the second term for President Trump. If you're saying it only kicks it back a couple of months, we're going to know, and he's still going to be president.
Yeah,
but I don't think that is the case.
As I've said with it, it's the manic excitement of the media.
Yeah.
That
the gotcha.
That the conclusion is the mission failed, and therefore it's a failure for the United States.
Right.
And as we have stated yesterday, you and I both yesterday said, well, it's not really a big deal because when you have an attack like this, you don't know until you do the assessment afterwards.
Right.
And it's like in any war, things don't go 100% most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time you learn, after the assessment, what damage did we do, and now where do we go forward? It was almost the emphasis to try to create a narrative that Trump is a failure across the board in this, when even if, and it doesn't seem like the experts agree at all with what CNN, the New York Times, and others are attempting to promote, from what I've seen, they believe there is significant damage across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll find out more in the upcoming days. But there was almost a finality to it.
Yeah, they went to the point of conclusion.
Like, this is the conclusion.
Right. Yeah.
Trump has failed. See, it was like, what are you talking about?
And they do that often.
Yeah.
As if it's, again, a matter of fact, no debate, consensus is in.
Here is, again, on CNN, this is retired General Philip Breedlove, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander in Europe.
There's some facts here. We have the very best planners, weaponeers, targeteers that put together a plan for how to use this great weapon, the MOP. And we know that plan was delivered to pilots who pulled this off in an amazing way. And it's more than the pilots. It's the joint team, the naval fires, the suppression fires, the things that the F-35s and F-22s did on their way. And the orchestration of a large package like this is a really big deal, and it went off magnificently. And from all the indications and the debriefs, the pilots and the aircraft and the weapons nailed it. They did it perfectly. So we should have, as kind of Norm said, an expectation that there was significant damage to this site.
Yeah, right. And there will be, there's constant assessment. Think about what they're trying to promote those media groups that are trying to promote that it was a failure. Think about what the ultimate message is that Donald Trump will leave it alone and won't come back to it if he finds out, indeed, it didn't set them back in the way that was intended.
I mean, I guess I would ask the question, what's the message? That Trump really doesn't want to destroy it?
Right. That he did it for political points, that's not even true within his own party. So you fail at every level in this kind of promotion. It really is to rob the victory from Trump. And is that because they know it truly was a victory?
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, I did see that one of the best things for Mayor Adams in New York City was Mamdani winning.
Right?
Now he has a chance.
You know, for a second, the story was out there that that Cuomo would run as an independent, but then within an hour or two, that was squashed. He was saying no, he's not going to run. But does Adams have a better chance? And I guess we'll see. But I think it stands to reason a lot of people in New York City are learning about Mamdani and where he stands, and how will that change the election?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Happy Thursday.
I'm just looking. The thing is, there's just so much going on. I'm just looking at all the different news there, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm on the air.
Hey, folks, apparently we have to keep talking.
Yeah,
we can't just bob our head yes or no.
That's what I was doing. Wow, what a day.
Or we'll just do the lazy talk show, and then we'll just do we'll set the topic and then go, Trump visited NATO. Wow, what do you know about that? Just leave it. Huh. I wonder how that went. Yeah. It's a crazy time. By the way, I think the best time to be in talk radio, the best time to do what we do. Because there's so much.
Oh, by far.
You know, it's got to be.
Yes.
This is why I say over the Babylon Bee. Man, you know what I know they can't do it because you don't want to spoil what you're going to post at the Babylon Bee. But you know how TMZ, I haven't seen TMZ in years, but they'd sit around, the bullpen basically and talk about what they're working on. Man, I'd love for them to post more from the Babylon Bee about that. Because those people are just very talented in writing how they write.
Oh,
and it's got to be rich because, what we do here, the stories that feed you every day are just, wow. Getting through all of them is a task.
When you do the umbrella of what's going on right now, the Democrats have learned nothing since their election defeat last year.
Yeah.
They've learned nothing. The media is, and I call it this manic response to anything that they believe they can get Trump on.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a manic response. I mean, you can feel that if there's any evidence that they're political activists, it is the enthusiasm where they jump on something as if it's, and the entire thing of the damage assessment, as if a leak, which I think the administration made a great point. Leakers have an agenda. That's why they leak.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting the whole story from a leaker.
Yep.
You're getting just what they wish to put out, which is a very low confidence analysis, which you could pick out. Low confidence is this.
Right.
More higher confidence is this.
Right.
Leave that out.
Right.
Just do the low confidence. And that will be the final inevitable conclusion that Trump has failed. And you can see it because you get that out of political activists. Journalists are like, well, okay, well, we'll see what it is. We'll see what they say. It's a leak, and I understand because I'm a suspicious journalist that I'm suspicious of everything. And if you're suspicious of everything, then you're suspicious of what any politician is feeding you or what any leak is feeding you.
Yeah.
Because you realize, okay, I'm a journalist. I'm going to assume they're all spinning. So I'm not going to make it sound like to anybody that I've come up with this final conclusion of whether the entire mission, which has not been explained to me what the entire mission is, or maybe it was explained to me because he said, well, if we didn't get it enough the first time, we'll go in again. Well, I'm just going to forget that part of it, and I'm just going to focus on the fact that this entire mission must be a failure. Trump's a failure because of a leak. I'm suspicious as to what the president is telling me. I'm not suspicious of any leak.
Right.
Journalists don't work that way.
No. No. Again, what would be the point? What are they trying to achieve with the leak? You know, if you are saying, well, the president is promoting that we're safe because there is no immediate danger that it's been put back a great deal. Well, even if by your own account it's been put back a couple of months and you believe that the president's intel is off, there is a way, if you're part of the intel community and doing your job to serve the country, to say, no, we're going to, I'm going to see if I can't pass this on up the chain because we think actually this may counter what the White House is seeing. Running to the media is not the answer. Never has been.
Well, running to the media when both you and I know there wasn't enough time at all.
Right.
To let anybody know what the proper analysis is. As Trump said the other day, Israel's had people at the site, which means Mossad has been there.
Yeah.
They've actually looked at it from the ground. If that's true, and Israel has not said that is not true, and forget about what Iran says. What you want to know is what Israel says.
Yes. Right.
Because they're the ones, they're the ones that are most worried about it. And so I just found it
well, no, you make the point. If Israel, who would have the greatest reason to say, hey, we didn't get the job done?
Israel.
They would have zero incentive in saying, no, the job was done. It's greatly damaged, severely damaged. They would have no incentive there. Now, if it's, if Mossad found that we only sent him back a couple of weeks, couple of months, whatever, I would expect that Netanyahu would probably be on a private phone call with Donald Trump, and they would talk that out. But Israel doesn't have any kind of incentive whatsoever to say, no, it was a devastating blow.
Well, these reporters don't, number one, have the expertise. I don't have the expertise.
No.
None of us have the expertise because we have a lack of information right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you wait. I'm not jumping on it. You're not jumping on it. We're not manic. Absolutely. I don't know. I'm waiting. You know, they say yes. People that know a lot more about it than me, that I actually trust in the media, have said, no, it looks like there was significant damage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the former UN inspector, he doesn't have any reason to support Trump. He's an expert.
Right.
And he said, no, significant damage was done to it. It's the politics that's being played with it. And to me and you, and probably to the UN nuclear inspector and others out there, it's not a political discussion to either praise Trump or criticize Trump. It's a military analysis of, did we get it?
Right.
And so there is no excitement to me. It's cold, hard analysis of what was done. So you learn from it and you either say, no, it was a success, we've got it, or there's more work to do. There is no conclusion that Trump is a failure. Trump is a failure doesn't come in to the analysis.
Right.
Because he's already said, well, we'll see what happened. And if it, when it dropped, and if it's not done or they start up again to do it, we'll go after them again. And he reiterated that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what the point is. You go in with an unknown in any attack.
Right.
And the vast majority of attacks don't have a 100% success rate, depending on how you judge 100% is. There is no, as I've said, their hope was to destroy it. Their goal was to destroy it so you could move them back a decade, or move them back a decade or a couple of years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And with the threat that if you start rebuilding again, we're going after you again. You use it to set them back. You use it to set a warning that if you continue, we're going to go after you again. And you use it as a deterrent for any other unfriendly country to the United States, any enemy of the United States, that we will go in and take care of business. That would be the multi-pronged goal. But if you're saying the media, the manic response, and I say manic, I think you understand what I mean. It's sort of like, but the report, are you saying the report isn't, some of the report has to be true? That kind of, as you heard from the reporters out there, almost a screeching hope that the damage wasn't done. To me, I look at it not as a political thing. I mean, there are parts of it that are political, but with the assessment of what happened, it's not political.
No, it's, again, it has to be an accurate assessment, and I trust that Mossad's information, Israel's information, is going to be accurate, and that they, of course, want to know exactly how far they set, or the U.S. set, Iran back.
Well, if he set Iran back a month or 2 months or 3 months, and they go back in and do it again, the political success, if you look at the politics of it, has been a tremendous success.
Right.
When you saw the way NATO responded and the NATO chief responded to it and the way other countries responded to it, it's been a tremendous political success, for the president.
Mm-hmm.
Now you judge the military success of it.
Right.
Your military goals, were they reached? And in probably 99% of military actions, you don't achieve 100% of your goal. Well, then what is sufficient? Did you get 70%? And that analysis goes on. Are they close to doing it again? Would it take them 5 years to come back and do this again? do we put the same bunker buster missiles in the holes that the first bunker buster missiles opened up for us?
Right.
And you look at it from that point. But the political activism of the media, and it's their manic response. It's sort of the hesitation, the stuttering that you hear when they ask the question.
Yeah.
Like there's a hoping that the president has failed here, and we can come to that conclusion. It didn't get everything. Well,
no, they really are wanting the gotcha moment. They're wanting for somebody in the administration, and they have their hopes set on the president saying something that sounds uncertain. That's what they want. Rob him of a victory, if you want to call it a victory. We can't have him have the win because they probably see the political win too.
Oh, yeah. It was, I'd be panicking if I were Democrats too. I'd be panicking and going, whatever you can get more manic, do whatever.
Right.
Because it wasn't just the success that he has had so far in this politically, but the political success goes to going to NATO and and also the responses of other countries, friendly European countries that are like, whew, so glad you did this.
Right.
And then NATO, the whole NATO thing to put on it, you look at it and you say, Trump is becoming an international statesman.
Yeah.
You want panic? Say that to Democrats. Trump has become an international statesman where people may have first disagreed with him like they did in NATO, but they agreed publicly, but behind the scenes they agreed with him, and now publicly they thank him.
They're calling him daddy.
They're calling him daddy.
I mean, that's how much things have changed between the first term and now. But certainly after going after Iran. Those nations know that you have to be strong, and too many of those nations have not been.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I'm reading this article about Gavin Newsom. Did you see that about him mocking Senator Linda McMahon, announcing that the state had violated Title IX by allowing trans athletes to compete in girls' sports. And if they don't rectify the situation, it will go to the Department of Justice, which it should, by the way.
Yeah, right. You're not complying.
And we all know Title IX was about what? Biological men. It was about protecting biological women.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was about.
Right.
Well, Newsom's office ripped. I'm telling you, there's no self-awareness at all. California Governor Gavin Newsom's office made light of U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon announcing the state had violated Title IX by allowing trans athletes to compete in girls' sports with a controversial social media post on Wednesday, just hours after McMahon's announcement of the violations and an ultimatum of 10 days for the state to amend its policies. Newsom's press office X account mocked McMahon with an old clip of her being body slammed during a WWE skit. The clip was of current Knox County Mayor Glenn Thomas Jacobs, then known as Kane, hitting McMahon with the move known as the Tombstone Pile Driver during an episode of Monday Night Raw. McMahon, as a wife of WWE founder Vince McMahon, had been heavily involved in the wrestling entertainment product for decades. She even led the WWE as CEO. However, Newsom's office making light of the Title IX violation announcement with a clip of McMahon's WWE past prompted severe backlash. Many critics pointed out that the clips depict a man physically overpowering a woman.
Can't do that, Gavin.
Which is often centered as one of the most common arguments about letting biological males compete in girls' and women's sports. So a man easily destroying a woman is how you want to relay that boys belong in girls' sports? One ex-user wrote. Another critical user of X. Thanks for proving our point. Men are stronger than women. I can't believe you actually posted this display of male violence. Wow. Several prominent women's rights activists and groups made separate posts speaking out against Newsom's office over their post. By the way, women's rights now are the women's rights movement is a new women's right movement. This is not the Gloria Steinem women's rights movement.
No.
Just so people know.
No. It's sit down, ladies. The men are here to take over your sports.
No. That was the old women's right. The new women's rights movement is Riley Gaines.
Oh, the true women's rights movement.
Right. When they say women's rights movements attacked it, it's like, yeah, because women's rights movement has completely changed.
No, that's actually true women's rights, yes.
All 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. How about if the Democrats start yelling Mamdani for 28?
Well, you have a number of them already getting behind him. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. Get him elected for mayor, or even if he loses. They're known to take losers straight to the top, right?
Well, just bypass
Beto. That
Beto.
didn't work out for him, did it?
He's still out there.
Yeah. But
how do these people make a living? How does somebody like Beto? When was the last actual job he had outside of government? But what's he been doing the last couple of years?
I don't know.
Is he a lobby? He's got to be a lobbyist.
I'm guessing a lobbyist or, I don't know, public speaking.
Now you're going to make me look.
Yeah.
When I saw him, when I didn't even know, you told me.
Yeah, he was in town.
That he was in Fort Worth last. He was in my area last week.
Yeah.
Why?
With Bernie on the No Oligarchs tour. Private jet and all. It's just
what is Beto doing these days?
That tour, by the way, is as old as Bernie himself and is tired as well. I mean, it's just no oligarchs. Okay, Bernie. All right. You're the one who wants to turn us more into Russia or the Soviet Union. So
Beto is currently not holding any elected office. We know because I put in what is Beto doing now. Is so Google AI.
Yeah.
Following his unsuccessful bid for Texas governor in 2022, he has not announced any future political campaigns. While he has been a prominent figure in Texas Democratic politics, including runs for the Senate and president, he is currently not holding any office. I know that.
Right.
But what's he doing?
Yeah. What is his job? How does he make money?
What's his job now? Let me go to Wikipedia because Wikipedia is always accurate. Okay, early life.
Oh, I just got a notification. My DoorDash driver, Beto, is about to pull up. Hold on. I got to go to the door.
It's like he's just a professional campaign. Yeah, there's nothing. I'm going here to 2016. Okay, U.S. Senate campaign, funding, debates, endorsements. What's he doing now?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't find it. I can't find what he's doing now. Because it's almost like they're professional campaigners.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
No, I can't find it.
Yeah.
I guess I could put in, is Beto working a private sector job?
By the way, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for Beto O'Rourke, and it's way too long. We can cut a bunch of this out. We're wasting, we're wasting something. We're wasting virtual paper here with his Wikipedia page being this long. There's zero reason.
Okay, so
I should not have to scroll this long.
I put in, is Beto working a private sector job today? AI responds, no. And this is great. I like this AI's thing.
Yeah.
No, Beto is not currently working in the private sector in the way that the search results indicate you might be thinking.
Well,
based no,
okay.
They know what I'm thinking. Based on the most recent information, Beto leads Powered by People, a Texas-based organization focused on expanding democracy through voter registration and engagement. Okay, he founded this and leads the organization, which focuses on voter registration and direct voter efforts. So he must be getting his salary from that,
I guess. Well, I mean, probably talk to Bill Clinton. What should I do? You should start a foundation. I guess that's what you do.
His past and private sector involvement. He previously co-founded an IT consulting company called Stanton Street. His wife took over the company after he was elected to Congress and sold her stake when he ran for the Senate. Investments in real estate. He's got property in El Paso. Teaching. He previously taught courses on voting rights in Texas politics at the LBJ School of Public Affairs and Texas State University. For God's sakes, the guy is clueless on everything.
Okay, so
seriously, a teacher?
I had to Google it too.
I should be a damn professor with 10 times tenure if he's taught in colleges, and I'm an idiot.
Well, here's his net worth, and according to OpenSecrets.org, his net worth as of 2017, $6.66 million. That's actually what it says. $6.66 million. Well, isn't that devilish? Yeah. All right. And who knows if that's accurate? I don't know.
Well, since one time they had me at $400 million.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that was true because, nobody looking for a sugar daddy came my way.
Exactly. Well,
and even though I do have a face for radio, I'm not the ugliest person ever on radio.
No, we're going to talk about that person coming up in the next segment. But get ready. And it's somebody who's still on the radio on one of our affiliates. So
I'm staying out of this completely. I'm not involved in this.
Well,
I'll insult myself. I'm not going to insult the looks of other people.
By the way, for the record, if you Google my net worth, I don't even know. I'm not going to even try it. Whatever it says, the arrow should be pointing down because I'm blowing through it at a very fast pace. So, I wonder about like speaking engagements.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's where you can make money. I forgot about that.
You could do that, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing outside of Texas or maybe not. Major metro areas. I mean, he was Bernie wanted him there, so he joined Bernie. No oligarchs Both of them were millionaires, according to our information, by the way. Both of them.
For God's sakes, he's completely and totally, this is the first time I've said this, and I don't mean to be picking on him, but he's just clueless.
Yeah.
He's a child.
Yeah.
Seriously, he has the mentality of a child.
Well, they tried to create the new rock star. Remember when the media was following him around and the whole thing? He skateboarded through a Whataburger parking lot. Well, so did I. Who hasn't? It's Texas. It's going to happen.
Hey.
And I was too drunk to drive.
If I was on the left, could you imagine how the left would cover me? If I was a leftist broadcaster? And Gary McNamara successfully has hit a ball with a stick. That's right. He golfs. But he's not an elitist golfer. He's a golfer for the working person.
Yeah.
Now, I have no idea what the hell that means, but...
He's the working man's golfer.
I'm the working man's golfer.
You mean the kind that never golfs, he's always at work?
Yeah, that's what it would. Yes, I told you. I have just a little while ago. I said, I'm hoping I have not had time. I have not had time to golf for the longest time. I have time to go to the driving range because I can do that. I only hit, 20, 30 golf balls. I can do that in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I may chip a little bit and putt, but my backhand handle, I don't go and pound 500 golf balls at a time. I can't do that. But my swing's pretty good. But I hope to start golfing again this fall. But I haven't had time to golf the last couple of years. Just haven't had the time. So maybe I should pick up skateboarding, huh?
I gave up golfing earlier. When someone asked me, hey, would you like to learn golf? I said no. So I abandoned it years ago.
Did you ever skateboard?
No.
Neither have I. Yeah. Never done that either.
No. I owned a skateboard or two, but I never really got into the skate park thing. Well, that wasn't my thing. And it wasn't, when I was young, it was more get on it and just go forward. It wasn't about trying to do any tricks in a park, in a skateboard park. So, no, I wasn't going to do that. Because number one, I knew by the time I turned 16, I was going to be able to drive. I don't need to do tricks on a little board that has 4 wheels. I can get in a car and get there faster. That's the only thing I worried about. It's like if I'm going to get my freedom, I'm not going to do it on a skateboard. I'm going to do it in my car. I'm going to get out. I don't know, the Beto thing was it had to have been one of the last rock star things they tried to do. Although I think with Mom Donnie, I think they're trying to do that now. Some. But does this fall flat?
No, I think you make a great point. I never thought of it that way, that the real last rock star that they attempted to promote. And, you and I have always articulated that Trump is a rock star in his own way, but his rock stardom began by it's 40 years in the making as he has promoted consistently what he believes. Mm-hmm. There's a substance to the rock stardom of Donald Trump. Right. It's based on the issues. It's based on the fact that it's based on what Trump, and if you want to call it the political idolatry of Trump, has always been based on the substance, which you have seen now over the last 5 months.
Yeah, right.
People believed, I love this guy because I believe he can get the job done. Now he's got the chance. His first term, Russia collusion, everything else, everything went out the window.
Yep.
That really helped to destroy his first term. The second term, it's like, go ahead, impeach me. Make my day.
Right,
because
exactly.
The Democrats have made impeachment actually a badge of honor for Trump.
Right.
And I think that's why they finally realized it. It's not that they didn't. It's not that the resistance has failed. It's they realize their tactics of the resistance had the opposite effect and put Trump into political office.
Yeah.
But
Trump,
Trump was based on the fact of, people believed he can get the job done, which he did like that. He's now proving it. Like that with Iraq, with NATO.
Mm-hmm. Or Iran, yeah.
What'd I say?
Iraq. As far as we know, there is no breaking news on bombing Iraq.
See, Durbin's going to say it's my dementia.
Yeah.
But Beto, it was like we're talking about the rock stardom based on nothing, which was Obama, which was hope and change.
Right.
And they were, always looking for the cool new person and the whole skateboarding thing. I remember when he went across the country with the Republican.
Yeah.
They went across the country in a car to talk.
Yeah.
To and it's like, stop with that crap.
Right.
But you're right. He really was.
Will Hurd, right? Yeah.
Will Hurd, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great observation. He was really the last rock star of
that the party tried to create.
That the party tried to create.
They all think they're AOC thinks she's a rock star. Jasmine Crockett thinks she's a rock. They all think they are a rock star, but in terms of the party trying to create that euphoria around one person, really Beto was the last one.
Well, for a significant period of time. I guess you could try to make the case they tried to do it with Harris, but nobody bought it in a couple of months.
What a horrible attempt.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
That was bad.
Nobody, not even the Democrats bought that.
Right. Remember the whole Joy thing? Wow.
God. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. I got to read the headlines of Fox News. You ready?
Okay, what do you got?
Trump stuns NATO with extraordinary Iran peace victory as allies adopt new spending. That's one headline. Here's another headline. The next headline. Satellite images show irrefutable evidence of Iran's nuclear sites damage. All the major stories of the day, right? Yeah. President Trump says Iran won't be building bombs for a very long time. Cuomo concedes to Democratic Socialist backed by AOC and Bernie Sanders. And legally blonde star flaunts bikini body at age 49.
Well, they got it in, didn't they?
They got the bikini story in.
All right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. All right. We by the time we get to Thursday of the week, we're just overloaded with audio cuts.
Yeah.
So we got to get to all of them.
All right.
Even if we jump around a little bit, our listeners are intelligent enough.
And they're very patient with us.
Yes.
Yes.
The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee held a hearing on the real cost of DEI, sacrificing excellence for ideology. Yeah. And so this was some of the interesting back and forth yesterday with Dr. Sean Harper, who's considered, he's a USC professor, considered an expert on DEI. Expert on DEI.
Okay.
I did some research on him.
Do you get certification for that?
He's considered one of the top 10 experts on DEI.
Yeah, all right.
What's the expert? All right, what group do we favor over another group? I think I need to go to college for about 50 years in order to figure that one out.
Right. And by the time you're done, it will be vastly different.
In the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But this is Representative Brandon Gill of Texas, and the back and forth, which you knew was going to be interesting. A little bit interesting. Here we go.
All right.
We're going to move on. Do you believe that America should be a colorblind society? For instance, should people be treated differently based on their race? It's just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
It is as I said in the beginning of my testimony, America
yes or
has
no
not done right by indigenous peoples, by black people, by Asian American and Pacific Islander people.
Should people be treated differently based on their race? Yes or no?
People should receive the services and the support and the remedies that are
your answer
owed to
is
them.
That they should be treated differently based on their race.
They should receive the remedies that are owed to them because of the systemic racism and injustice.
Do you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices?
I do not believe that white people are the only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered in employer hiring practices. And you're not going to intimidate me by slandering me as a racist.
I did not call you a racist.
No,
you're not going to intimidate me by insisting that I called you a racist.
Straightforward question. It's a yes or no question. Should race be considered in employer hiring practices? Yes or no?
I believe that diversity ought to be considered as companies and other organizations attempt to reflect their customers, our country.
I'll take that as a yes. Which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
You just said that you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices.
I don't know. There's going to be a transcript of this hearing. I didn't say that in that way.
Okay. Why don't you explain what you believe?
What I said and what I believe is that the demographic composition of workplaces, our nation's military, and so on, our Congress ought to reflect the diversity of the United States of America.
Demographic composition. Racial demographic. Is that what you're saying?
Racial, gender.
Okay, so race should be a factor in employer hiring practices. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is it not?
Organizations ought to attempt to match the diversity of their...
You're hopping around the question.
No, I am answering quite straightforwardly, as a matter of fact.
Who gets to determine which races are preferred?
I already told you I don't have a single racial group.
You just told me that you believe that the racial demographic makeup should be taken into account in hiring practices.
And it should be reflected in all levels of companies and other organizations.
Okay, isn't it amazing how he won't just answer the question? No. We all know what he thinks.
Right.
And he won't answer the question.
Right. Oh, I didn't say that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I love the approach. Well, then just tell us what you think. Why don't you just tell us what you think? Because they can't actually do that, out loud. They can't really get to their real radical thoughts and ideas and promote them heavily because it doesn't work politically. You have to do that, in a more subtle fashion. You can't just go out and you have to wait until the weekend to be an activist if you're going to be on the left. I mean, if you're going to be Padilla or now Mamdani and be an activist, I just do that on the weekend. It's only part-time.
And
I care about old people.
Then this got interesting at the House Oversight hearing about DEI programs. This is Democrat Representative Latifa Simon that objected to Republicans invoking the words of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Oh,
here we go.
I want to be clear that 4 out of the 5 of you last year posted on your social media the words of Dr. King. And there are so few folks who actually have studied, who are clear on the theology of freedom of King. Very few of you have read and studied and have sat in Ebenezer Baptist Church, so I would ask you, you keep Dr. King's name out of your mouth. If you, like me and the many scholars who will be watching, studied King, you know that he and the mothers and the fathers of the civil rights movement and of the movement for emancipation not only would be struck by the conversations in this room, but would be shattered by the consequence of lives, of hatred, of abuse of this administration in the name of folks who worked to make this country more free. Children of Abraham, for real. I want to be clear for the young people that are listening today here in this audience, this conversation is not about an acronym.
She just picked out that you had Republicans that had put out the words of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
She not even that day. She was talking about probably on his birthday.
Yeah.
And she
Right.
objected to that. A Republican can't do that, or if you support Trump, you can't do that because you're against the philosophy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
I will say this. Finally, somebody has spoken up on the left because the right have been using one of the major tenets of Dr. Martin Luther King, one of the narratives that lives with him by not judging people by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Democrats can't have that.
No.
I think...
How dare you use that? Because what she's really trying to say is it works too well. You're making a point when you do that, and we can't have that because the Democrats are working against that principle that he preached.
Interesting thing is, she doesn't remember Dr. King. She's 48 years old. I remember Dr. King because I'm old.
Just like you hired Marconi into radio.
Exactly.
You were around. And
I remember
Dr.
watching a lot of different discussions of what he had. I think Dr. King would be quite impressed about the vibrant debate on race. I would love to hear, it's not going to happen, but it would be great to hear Dr. King talking to liberal blacks versus conservative blacks. And I would like to see him talking to a Wesley Hunt, West Point graduate.
Yeah,
we played.
Yep.
We played yesterday.
Right.
Versus the radical left of today. A Jamal Bowman versus a Wesley Hunt.
Right. Well, and when she
you saw that Bowman yesterday said because of the N-word, that's why black people overeat and are obese.
Yeah. Wow.
Because of the N-word.
Wow.
I would love to hear the debate with Dr. King moderating with blacks who support Trump and blacks who do not.
Right.
And because the whole thing is, and I believe that Dr. King believed in the autonomy of the individual, that you're not judged by your skin color. You're judged by your character. You're judged by, if you're in the arena of debate, you're judged by the debate points you make. You're judged by whether you're dealing with the truth. And you're judged by the character of the individual, that actually race is meaningless.
Right.
If we're to become a perfect society. I'm not saying that race has always been meaningless, because it hasn't been. But that has to be the goal. Autonomy has to be the goal. Who was the young man, the author, that was saying that and was on The View, and they were furious? Oh, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, several months ago,
He
right?
was, probably about a year ago. He says the goal has to be the autonomy of the individual, where race doesn't matter. That has to be it. If it's not that, you're never going to move on.
Well, and it's been said over and over again, and when she brings up the civil rights movement and basically the founders of the civil rights movement, let's take a look at that and what the Democratic Party, her party, is promoting. Because with the liberal transgender movement, what they're saying is that anyone can belong to a protected class simply by saying so. If that's the case, there are no protected classes, as outlined by the Civil Rights Act. Yeah. So you cannot make the argument for the Democrats. You can get as excited as you want to in the moment, but the truth is being told every day by your own party.
Well, as we've said, I expect this fight coming back because, as we've stated, without any pushback for years. No, I mean zero pushback.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
Right.
When we say the Democratic Party is a party of racism because of identity politics, where they choose to judge people by groups and not individuals. I have never had one response back. I've been saying that since the mid-'90s.
The 1990s, to be clear.
The 1990s, right, not the 1890s.
Yeah.
The 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And no pushback, none. Not once, anytime, ever. Have I ever got any pushback on that? People know it's true. People know People know, and we've known for a long time, if you're going to judge people by the group that they're in, the physical characteristics, the sexual characteristics, or whatever, and group them all in, or all Trump voters,
mm-hmm.
or all whatever. You judge a person by what they think themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you judge them.
Yep.
You judge them by the content of their character. We're in talk radio in the arena of ideas. You judge them by the substance that they bring to the debate table. That's how you judge them. They can't have that. They know, Democrats know, identity politics has helped to kill their party because it's racism and the American public doesn't accept racism.
Yep. But they're still going to go that direction.
Yeah. She has to.
Yep. They don't have anything else.
Yeah. And the whole thing is, you can't bring up Dr. King's name. Only I can. Sorry. Doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Not in the arena of ideas.
No, it doesn't.
Anybody can bring up whatever they want. If they have a salient point, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Doesn't matter the skin color or who they voted for. Do they have a good point?
Right. And she did not.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We got a classic audio coming up on the bottom of the hour you want to hear. And Ted Cruz with the witness that the Democrats brought forward. It was the Senate Judiciary Committee having a hearing on China and energy.
Yeah.
China,
Yeah.
and then energy innovation.
Yeah.
And this is a witness who believes that oil companies should be prosecuted for murder. I think when we play it, we'll play it and we'll comment more on it. But Cruz seems to be like, you're the witness that they brought. You're the main witness for the minority.
Yeah.
It's like, but this happened yesterday. Didn't get a lot of publicity, but Anthony Brunell, the former advisor to former First Lady Jill Biden, is now refusing to appear before an House Oversight Committee to be questioned about the alleged cover-up of former President Joe Biden's mental decline. James Comer said in a press release Tuesday that Brunell was refusing to appear on June 26 for a transcribed interview as part of the committee's investigation into the Biden cover-up and also the potentially unauthorized use of auto pen for executive actions and pardons. You heard about Nina Tandon, that she testified that, she authorized the use of the auto pen and didn't know where it came from.
Right.
Just assumed it came from the president.
Right.
But couldn't tell you that it did.
Right.
Now that the White House has waived executive privilege, it's abundantly clear that Anthony Brunell, Joe Biden's so-called work husband, never intended to be transparent about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and the ensuing cover-up, Comer said. With no privilege left behind, Mr. Brunell is now running scared, desperate to bury the truth. The American people deserve answers and accountability, and the Oversight Committee will not tolerate this obstruction. The chairman added that if Brunell does not wish to come in on his own, he will issue a subpoena to compel Brunell to provide testimony before the committee. Letters obtained by Fox News Digital from the source familiar with the matter show the Trump administration will not allow the people of interest in Comer's probe to use their past White House work as a legal shield. Deputy counsel to the president sent letters to former Biden chief of staff, former senior advisors, saying, in light of the unique and extraordinary nature of the matters under investigation, President Trump has determined that an assertion of executive privilege is not in the national interest and therefore is not justified with respect to particular subjects within the purview of the House Oversight Committee. Those subjects include your assessment of former President Biden's fitness for office of president and your knowledge of who exercised executive powers during his administration. That'll be interesting.
It will be.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just looking at that story where Jill Biden's, they call him Jill Biden's work husband, runs for cover as a privilege protection crumbles. So he probably will be subpoenaed to come in because he won't come in voluntarily now. Congressional Republicans in the White House are investigating whether the senior aides in question played any role in keeping concerns about the former president's mental acuity shielded from the public eye and even from lower-level White House staffers. Just yesterday, Comer said, we heard from our first witness, Nina Tandon, the former staff secretary who controlled the Biden auto pen, Comer said. Ms. Tandon testified she had minimal interactions with President Biden despite wielding tremendous authority. She explained that to obtain approval for auto pen signatures, she would send decision memos to members of the president's inner circle and had no visibility of what occurred between sending the memo and receiving it back with approval. Her testimony raises serious questions about who was really calling the shots in the Biden White House amid the president's obvious decline, We will continue to pursue the truth for the American people. Burnell's team previously confirmed he would appear for a transcribed interview. It would have been today, according to Comer's office. But yesterday, the White House counsel's office notified Burnell that it was waiving executive privilege regarding the Oversight Committee's investigation. Burnell's legal team then told the committee he would no longer appear for the interview. For example, it meant he couldn't say, well, I can't answer that. I can't answer that because of executive privilege.
Right.
I can't answer that because of executive privilege. I can't answer that because of executive privilege.
Right.
But did the executive privilege come from the auto pen or Biden?
I have pen privilege.
It's like,
well,
if here's the question. If Biden was not making, nobody's made this point. Not that I've heard. It just popped into my head. If Biden wasn't making the decisions and an aides to Biden were making the decisions and then using the auto pen, does executive privilege even come into the legal argument because they weren't part of the executive branch, because the executive branch is Biden. If they're not including Biden in, if the aides are making the decisions, well, the executive privilege is for what the president wants, not what his aides want. Am I onto something here?
No, I think you open up something, because even if Jill Biden was in the room and that was the communication, it doesn't apply. Nothing applies unless
doesn't apply.
Joe Biden, it was an actual conversation with Joe Biden.
Now, I will admit, I don't know what the precedent would be here, because I don't think this has ever been something like this has ever gone to the courts.
Well, so there might be some Biden things that get to the Supreme Court, and they're looking at it going, yeah, we don't even know what to, or any court, we don't even know where to go with this.
It just popped into my head as we were talking, so let me go over this again in my head.
Right.
They're claiming executive privilege. Well, we can't. These are conversations we had, with the president, so executive privileges. What if there were no conversations with the president?
Right.
What if the president didn't make the decision? What if what Comer wants to know is simply, did somebody else make the decision to sign executive orders that were not the president, and the president did not know that executive order was being signed? If there's the case and there's no communication or behavior by the president, then does executive privilege go out the window? I
have to believe it does.
I would think it would have to, because only the elected representative of the people in the executive branch has the executive privilege. Now, if you're communicating directly with him, it comes to you, but the executive privilege is initiated through the President of the United States and his communication. If you're just signing executive orders and the president hasn't approved it, you don't have executive privilege, do you?
No. Not in my opinion.
Because the privilege comes because of the behavior and communications with the President of the United States, who is the elected executive branch representative of the people. Aides that are appointed, their communication that does not include the president, which then would be technically it'd be fraud, because you are using the president and the auto pen to sign executive orders that the president hasn't approved. There is no executive privilege, and when you put the possibility of fraudulently using it, executive privilege has to be out the window, because that would be a crime, would it not?
Yes.
If you're signing executive orders and the president doesn't know it.
Oh, that's
fraud.
Yes.
Now, I didn't say criminal fraud because I don't know what the law is. This just popped into my head while we were talking a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'd have to find the statute on that.
So I haven't run everything through my head at the moment here. But executive privilege has to be out the window. And so in order to determine that, you've got to be able to question the people, right?
Yeah, because ultimately what you're going to have to do is you're going to have somebody who's going to talk. I mean, that's with every case, that's it. And we're talking about a very close, and we've heard this before. There was a story out months ago that it was down to like very few, like 2, 3, 4 people.
Well, if Tandon says, as Comer said, and by the way, that was reported, that what she said was, yeah, I use the auto pen, but I don't know where the order came from. I never directly communicated with the president. So the person in charge of the auto pen isn't with the president who says, yes, we approve it. I approve this. So go ahead, use the auto pen for it.
Then where did she get the directive?
Who gave her the direction? And that's why probably she had to talk because she didn't communicate. This wasn't about private communications with the president. So executive privilege didn't apply to her at that point because she wasn't communicating with the president. She was communicating.
She admitted that.
Yeah. So you've just connected another dot that the Democrats did not want connected. She was the auto pen person.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of them. But she was an auto pen person, and she never communicated directly with the president on where she used the auto pen for his signature. Whoa.
Well, I think the key is that it clearly lies with Jill Biden, the former First Lady. There's no doubt in my mind it does.
Executive privilege does not apply to communicating with the First Lady.
Right. So the question would be, who's going to be the first to talk? Where's the break? Where's the fissure?
Now, does it all go away if Jill, again, this is pure speculation here, but it's interesting speculation. If they brought Jill Biden in to testify and she said, oh, no, I told all those people to use the auto pen because Joe told me that's what he wants. Where do you go from that point?
No, I think they believe they may have a clear wall that they have built in this situation, a solid wall that you can't get around.
Right.
I mean, you would have to if you're doing something this massive.
You would have to sit there and say, what's our out in all of this? Our out would be the First Lady would simply say, oh, no, I had the conversations with Joe. He told me to sign it. So I told them, this person, they told that person, they told that person, then the auto pen was used. But no, Joe told me. What are they going to do? Bring Biden to testify?
No. That's not going to happen.
Now, does it smell? Does it smell the pass test? Does it pass the smell test? Dementia. By the way, when we hear that, we're not making fun of dementia. We're making fun of Dick Durbin, who last week was because he brought up an example of Trump saying.
Trump was talking about a deal with the EU on trade.
And he said
and
UK.
And he was talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gave that one example of that's the evidence that he has that Trump has dementia, and the problem is not Biden.
He confused the UK with the EU. Yeah.
But he said that then everything's gone on here over the last couple of days, you know, with the strike on Iran and then NATO and everything else.
There's no
the
way
president's
you can
out there
look
articulating
at
everything.
Trump and look at him and what he's done, the mission in Iran, talking with the media, I don't know how many times, pretty much at every turn, and doing open press conferences over and over in the Oval Office and at NATO. He's doing press conferences. He's talking to the media. He's talking to everybody. He's carrying on conversations. There's no way you can make the case he has any cognitive issues. No way. And Durbin's just trying to pull something. That's the only thing they have.
Oh, it's really bad, though.
But I think
we played it last week. It was
but
horrible.
I think, again, you get back to the Biden investigation.
Yeah.
It would have to be, I said a while back that if you open this, you have to know you're going to have to find something solid in terms of any evidence. And it's probably not going to be a staffer or somebody testifying on something versus Jill Biden's word, because you're not going to win that. It has to be something more. I don't know what that would be. But I have no doubt it was used multiple times, and then President Biden didn't know it, wasn't aware.
It is within the realm of possibilities, isn't it?
I'll put $1 on that bet all day.
You can't say, no way that didn't happen. Biden signed all of those 950,000 pardons.
Well,
okay, maybe I'm exaggerating it by a couple of 100,000.
Well, I'd have to get Jake Tapper here and say, hey, what do you think? You think it's a possibility? What do you think? You're going to put the odds on it, Jake, if whether or not the auto pen was used without his knowledge, based on the book you've written and what you know about? What do you think?
From now on, any Biden question, we go to the expert, Jake Tapper.
Right. And that's the problem they have, is that you have very few defenders of Joe Biden or this situation. Especially.
We shouldn't be having this much fun. Shouldn't be having this much fun.
They built it. Yeah. We're just spectators.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app now. Why? Not today. Now.
Now. Do it now. Do it now. Listen to me.
Now would be today, though. And the reason? Well, because our show ends in an hour. And a lot of you don't get to listen to the beginning of the show or the end of the show or the middle of the show. We know 5 hours overnight is a long time. Well, if you want to catch more of the show, after it's done, we record it, and it becomes our podcast. Also, if for some reason you can't listen to one of our great radio stations that carry us overnight, which is the preferred way to listen, well, we stream all 5 hours live on our Red Eye Radio app. Coming up, the liar speaks, and the liar makes a good point.
Oh.
He's not really a liar. That's what his character's
But he played one on TV.
He played one on TV, yes.
Yeah.
And what kills us about, well, it really doesn't kill us, what bothers us about the media.
Just one of the many things.
Just one of the many things. It was a story I just read to you. I just saw it a minute before we went on the air, and I read it to you, and you went, what? Mm-hmm. The same thing. Mm-hmm. Story's headline says one thing, and it leads you in a completely different direction than what the body of the story is.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.